You're listening to A Glimpse Inside on the Super Power Up Network, the show that affirms for people there is more to life, and it is possible to be happy, inspired, successful, joyous, and free.
Welcome to A Glimpse Inside. I'm Wendy Perrotti, and I'm excited to be here with you on the Super Power Up Network. This show is about affirming for people that there is more to life, and it is possible for every single one of us to be inspired, successful, joyous, and free. Today we'll be talking about reigniting personal power. It's episode 2 of our 4-part series on Reinvention after 40. Each of our 4-episode series explores its topic through no-holds-barred conversations, real-life coaching, and in-depth interviews. On episode 1 of this series, Jennifer Dagenhart and I had a candid conversation about her amazing reinvention after being derailed by an unanticipated career change. If you missed it, go back and check it out. Jen is really funny. My guest, she is. I don't know if you've met her, Liz. My guest today is here for a Reinvention After 40 coaching session, and she has generously agreed to let you listen in. Welcome, Liz. How are you feeling about being here today?
Oh, I'm good. I'm a little nervous, but I'm sitting outside in my happy place. So
Right.
I'm excited. I'm really excited about it, actually. Thanks for inviting me.
I'm glad you're excited about it. For those of you, if you hear any sort of sounds in the background, Liz is actually outside. She's working in a bee garden, which is kind of cool. And there's no need to be nervous about this, Liz. This is 100% your time. You are completely at choice about where we take this. That being said,
okay.
I do have a couple of rules for us to follow, and I'm going to ask those of you listening in to follow these rules as well. Number 1, this is purely a judgment-free zone. Right, wrong, good, and bad do not exist here. In order for you to access your true compass, you need to feel free to explore everything and anything that the mind presents. Agreed?
Sounds good.
All right. Number 2, remain open. For any of us to lean into truly new territory, we need to proceed with a beginner's mind. Everything you think you know, even about what you want, needs to get stashed away. Don't worry, it'll still be there if you need it later on. And finally, I'm going to ask that you play all in. All of the things that we work on together, while they may not be easy, will be inherently simple. That said, without your full attention and intention, they can never move from concept or even from action into reality. Cool?
Sounds right.
All right, Liz, let's go. Before we dig into what you really want to work on today, would you be willing to share a little bit of your backstory with our listeners so they can have some context?
Sure. So I'm a widow raising 2 teenagers, and I had a job as a contractor, government contractor, working in a science center, and back in about 2 years ago, and a series of things happened in 1 year. This was 7 years after my husband had died, and so I was making my way as a widow, working, a single mom, and a number of things happened in a period of a year that were a little overwhelming. The first thing was that my brother died. My brother, who I was really close to, died on the day that I started this job, this dream job, working as basically the assistant to the director of this USGS science lab, which was such a great job. But immediately I had to defer for 2 weeks so I could deal with that death. It was my second brother that I had lost to alcohol after my husband died. And then 6 months later, I got a call that my mom was dying, and I went out to Seattle to be with her when she died on the day that Trump was elected, the day or nominated, or no, sworn in, the day that he was sworn in January. of 2017, which started my year of sort of just really big struggles. I was glad that I was with my mom when she died, and I got to be with her and hold her hand. And then the year began, and 6 months later, I had been. 6 months later, I had a hysterectomy scheduled, and a week before the hysterectomy, I was in a head-on collision with a woman who had ran a red light. So I had this accident. I walked away from it. I sold the car that I was driving was a car that I had bought when I had sold my business. And it was sort of the last remnants of this previous life that I had before my kids were born. And that car was totaled. I got out and laughed because I was completely fine, although I saw my life flash before my eyes. And having already lost my husband to a car accident, this was a really traumatic event for me. But I didn't really even realize it until later. I basically hitched a ride to work with the cop and everything and went on my merry way. A week later, I had the hysterectomy to cure this ongoing issue that I had with fibroids. A week after the surgery, I was in the hospital for a debilitating pain in my chest, which we sort of attributed initially to the car accident until 3 days later, I had a call from my OB doctor, and she said that basically that I had cancer and not fibroids, and that she wanted me to go see an oncologist and have an MRI done, which I had done, and I thought, I'm better, I'm fine, and sort of like with the car accident, where I just was like, I'm good. It's not. And then I went to the oncologist, and she said, I'm sure by now there's this, lump between your heart and your lungs, and, we need to send you to a thoracic surgeon. We may have to might be part of this rare cancer that you have. There's only like 7 people that have had breast cancer. So there's not really good protocol for anyway. So then I had the cancer. That was a week after the surgery, which was 6 months after, which was a week after the car accident. So long story short, then while I had the surgery, I was supposed to be doing work at home for my job so that I could keep my job after the transition to the new administration. And because I then had all these other things happening, I wasn't able to do the work at home, so I lost my job. So that's pretty much, that year in a nutshell. And basically the next 2 years I spent processing. Well, first of all, getting help from the cancer and getting better from the cancer, but not getting strong afterwards, really, because a lot of it was just processing these things that I just listed to you that happened in 2017. Like, it was just a lot. And when I found Wendy, I was in the process of trying to stand back up after all of this stuff had happened, and realizing that it was okay to take some time off to process it, but I had really wanted to put the things that I had learned from being inside the government, and seeing how it works, and seeing where the shortcomings are in the ecosystems budgeting for USGS and Department of Interior, putting those things, fixing the glitches that I see in the private sector, because the government is not, I realized from being inside that the government is not set up to save the environment. So I started a nonprofit 2018, the fall of 2018, and I don't even remember when I found Wendy, but when I saw one of my family members I saw that she had begun selling her photography, and I've seen just transformations in her personal life and in her business life, and I thought, I want that. And who was it that she thanked? So I looked up Wendy, and that's how I got started with the coaching. And I want to say that it really transformed me almost immediately from a place of, how do I put these pieces together now that I've seen what they are, to making progress, on a on a daily and weekly basis. So that's the long. I hope I didn't go over my time on that.
No, this is
The
all
long
your
story.
time, Liz.
The
Your
long
time.
story.
And
So here I am. Yeah. So now I have this business, but I'm also volunteering, and that's why I'm at the B Lab right now. There.
Okay. So I totally want to thank you for sharing that story. That's one huge nutshell, Liz. And it's really brave of you to come on and share it. I'm certain that in its sharing, others are going to find comfort and inspiration. I know I do. And I think that's a good place for us to take our little break. So, for those of you out here, we're going to take a really quick break. We've been talking with Liz about her courageous work to rebuild her life. When we come back, I'm going to really dig into some coaching with her. And as always, I'll be giving you some tips and tools that you can start using today. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Don Rekla, Executive Director of Superpower Experts, and we want to thank each of you for making Superpower Up the #1 podcast network for personal development and spiritual growth. Because people like you have the courage to say that mindfulness, healthy living, disrupting reality, the pursuit of consciousness, responsible entrepreneurship, and radical parenting matter, we now amass over 1 million downloads monthly in more than 90 countries. Our numbers keep growing because there are far more people willing to live divergently than mass media wants to acknowledge. For you, the change makers, the light bearers, the way showers, we say thank you. If you're ready to take the next step in your evolution, go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower Quiz. And as Neva Lee Rekla, our youngest podcaster, likes to remind us, remember, we all have superpowers and we can change the world.
So happy to have you back with us. Today, you're listening to episode 2 of our 4-part Reinvention After 40 series, where I'll be coaching Liz as she reignites her personal power. So before our break, Liz, you told us one hell of a story about a couple of years in your life, and gave our listeners an indication that you've put a foot forward on the road back of regaining your power, of regaining your life, and really turning things around. What do you feel you want to really work on today?
So right now, Wendy, this week has been, I'm having trouble this week because there's some common themes in my adult career life regarding death and like trying to move forward while death sort of happens in the background. And right now, I mean, that's just a sort of a crude way to say it, but I think it's kind of something that we all have to face when we're in the second half of our life, and dealing with, people die. Well, and right now, I have my son's tutor, who is a very dear, dear friend of mine, who stepped in and sort of became the mentor for my teenage son after my husband died, has been moved to hospice. And my dad has also been moved from the hospital into a place where he's either going to be, I don't know, he's just very weak, and he keeps talking to me, and I keep wishing that I could be with him. So while those things are happening in the background, I'm trying to keep my focus on the things that I need to do this week for the Pollinator Festival, which I'm heading up. I am volunteering here at the B Lab, and they've asked me to be the representative because the scientist can't be there. So I'm really excited about it, and I've just got so many things that heading into it that I'm trying to prioritize the things that are most important. And last time we spoke, you told me that I should first find a way to pay my mortgage before I start like worrying about the logo and this kind of thing, because Remeadow is going to have a site there we're going to have a table. I've got like 4 other volunteers that are helping me out. So I'll have a table for Remeadow and a table for the B Lab. So I'm trying to kind of stay focused on what's the important things. And you saying that about paying the mortgage, like helping me triage to do that first, really helped. Even though I actually haven't done that yet, I took steps to figure out how to do it. And so that when my my power was turned off today. My son called me and said the power was turned off, and I almost didn't believe him because I don't remember getting the shut-off notice, but I guess it was so long ago that, anyway, so I found a way to pay that, which I wouldn't have been able to do had I not put a foot forward in trying to make sure that the other thing was solved. And also just making that the priority helps me to keep the focus on moving forward. And, one of the primary goals of Remeadow is that I know that so many people are in survival mode right now that saving the planet can't be like the number one on the list. And so I'm in my own, I am my best customer in trying to like figure out how to do both. And, you gotta put the oxygen mask on yourself first, always, before you help the little kid out, or whatever that saying goes. So I'm trying to make sure I got all those needs met while I go along. So what I want to focus on is how do I make sure that I'm pretty overwhelmed by the many lists that I have going into this the Pollinator Festival is on Saturday. I have now 2 high school students and 1 intern here, and possibly 2 others that can help me set up. And I'm making jewelry for it, and I have to get a bank account set up for Remeadow. And I took your advice on the logo piece, and I just got one of these stamp things, so that all I have to do is stamp out a bunch of price tags using this stamp. And it's, that worked out pretty well. It's not even, I just don't have a logo right now. It's okay. I don't need it. So, but what do I need to make this the most successful thing? And how do I prioritize? I really want to be able to give away seeds to people, because that's the main focus, is for people to be empowered by planting native plants. But it's the one thing I haven't done. So, I don't know.
Okay.
I did. So.
All right. So
yeah.
Let's start by taking a really deep breath, because that's a lot, my friend. Right? That is a lot.
Yeah. I mean, there's I have to make all of the jewelry that we're going to sell. That is to make money for Remeadow. And anyway, and I guess I can try to get the interns to do that tonight and tomorrow. And then I really want to see Daryl. I want to go down and visit him, and I'm trying to incorporate that. Do I do that right afterwards? He's in hospice, and I don't want to miss my chance with him. So I'm constantly thinking about that. So I did reach out to him, and I haven't heard back yet, so that's kind of weighing on me. So maybe I should reach out to him today too. Anyway, I interrupted you. Go ahead. Sorry.
That's fine. It's important that you sort of clear out all of your thoughts. I'm hearing, and I'm sure people listening in are recognizing themselves in you, in that when we have this many things going on in life, our brain jumps from one thought to another, from one thing we have to do to another, and prioritizing them and even untangling them sometimes seems like a bigger job than actually the things that those thoughts represent.
Right. And even finding the time, it's not even the time, it's finding the mindset to be able to slow down enough, or think you can slow down enough to make the list. Sometimes I have the list, and right now I don't. I haven't made the time to sit down and make the list that I need to make.
Yeah. So when you're in a situation where we always want to prioritize our tasks and our thoughts and our intentions, so that we're headed in the direction in life that feels aligned and feels empowering and feels meaningful. And at the same time, sometimes life really hits us hard with so many things at once that prioritization becomes triage. Okay. And you mentioned that the last time we spoke, part of the triage was, okay, figure out a way to get the mortgage paid. I want to be really clear for folks listening in that that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the highest priority. What it means is, in our triage for Liz, it was the thing that was going to take some of the pressure off to allow some agility and some energy for her to move in other places. So as we attack this list today, Liz, we're looking at it in that same way. There is no right or wrong way to do this. There is no good or bad thing that you could possibly choose to do here. It's about triaging what's in front of you so that the choices that you make get your attention in the order that leads you closest to what you're really wanting for your life. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So there are three huge themes here. And they are so, these three huge themes that I'm seeing here are like at the foundation of all of our lives. But very few of us, fortunately or unfortunately, are put in the position of looking at them all in once as intensely as you're faced with this week. And that is survival, right? That is the foundation of everything. We need to survive. And in that case, it means having a roof over your head, keeping the lights on, survival. Number 2 is loving and connection, right? Being able to freely love and be truly connected with the people who are important in our lives is the thing that it sort of makes survival worth it, right?
Yeah.
Survival worth it. Without that,
Right.
we end up what's the point, right? And then the third thing is mission, right? I love that even though everything kind of hit you in the face at once again this week, you're recognizing oxygen mask first. And for you, part of that oxygen mask, part of your personal power has been the rediscovery of your mission. Right? And so holding on to that and having that be a part of your triage, critical for you. And for all of us, right? For all of us, survival, loving, and mission, that's really the holy trio that leads to a life that feels well lived, that we're proud of. So right off the bat, as overwhelmed as you feel right now, take a moment and appreciate that with all of those thoughts and all of those tasks, you still had the wherewithal. Like you've grown from a couple of months ago, right? To this point now where you saw all three of these are what's in front of me, and all three of them are important. That's huge, Liz.
I would add health in with the survival piece, because doing this new job that I have has really, really given me my physical strength back, which has been very empowering for me. I'm outside like 8 hours a day, and no matter what the heat or the cold, doing the surveys for the bees. And it's really reconnected me with a part of myself that was gone before, not just physically. Like physically, I used to not be able to walk up and down the steps from the cancer because I had it for so long. I didn't realize how much it had affected me. And getting this physical strength back has really been so powerful for me. And then also having that time, that is putting in I don't know how you would describe it, but like, that's my meditation, is being outside. I'm by myself, like on the refuge for 8 hours, just doing these surveys. And it's so empowering for me. It reconnects me with the self that I was when I was a kid. It's the journey that I set off on when I was a kid that I was derailed from other passions. It wasn't like it happened to me. I chose other things.
Yeah. You know what? And that's what happens in the middle of our lives, right? We start to build a life that's based on all kinds of external expectations and things that come at us, and our responses and our reactions to those. And the next thing that we know, we're living this default life that we'd never actually chose.
Yeah, well, or things that were what I chose at the time, And then there's pieces that I left behind. I think I one time worked for an artist who said that, she had like 6 careers, and she was like, well, nowadays you live so long, you get to have more than one.
Mm.
And I feel like when you're in your later part of your life, and I've seen this with my friends too, like you can bring so much from your experiences. It's sort of like the time when all of your experiences head towards the one thing that makes the most sense for all of your strengths. And that's beautiful. I've seen it in so many other people. So I love that feeling of like being able to do something that I'm good at by nature because I've arrived at this place by maybe by default or by other choices. Yeah, like those things come together in a way if you're looking for it or something, I guess. Anyway, I'm agreeing with you. I'm just adding.
No, I hear it. I hear it. And again, it's another piece that it's important for you to take a moment and absorb as growth for you, right? As as your own personal achievement. It's so easy for us to notice the things that we still need to work on because our brains
Mm-hmm.
are wired to embed that stuff, right? Anything
Mm-hmm.
that's sore, anything that's scary, our brains embed it. They're not
Mm-hmm.
wired to embed what doesn't hurt, right? We don't notice when we
Mm-hmm.
don't have a sore throat. So these moments of personal growth and triumph for you are so important for you to take a moment and recognize, because in
Mm-hmm.
that you'll be able to pull from them and add to them and build on them, which is what you've been doing.
Right. It seems like people tend to, it can also be people that you're around that tend to, want to point out the things that where you're, the things that are, or maybe that's the internal voices that we all have too. Like my house is, I would really let my house go. I've got, I was sick for so long that so much is out of whack from years of being anemic, and I've had to continue to let it go because it's not my number one priority. I mean, I'm chipping away at it, but it can't be discouraged that it's not going to happen all at once because, like you said, I mean, it makes sense that I'm making progress in some of these other areas that are more important to me. I'm making phone calls to my sister every morning. She has, I took off the summer to be with her. She has Alzheimer's and I was taking care of her. And that's an important piece of my life right now too. My dad and my sister. I'm making time in the morning. I'm starting to have a little more like of a schedule because that's one of the things that's difficult when you don't have a job is you don't have, I have one, my daughter goes to school and everything, but I don't have a regular, I'm not a good person at creating my own, really good schedule. So anyway, I'm starting to have a routine of contacting people in the morning so that I can feel that. I mean, it makes sense. I didn't know your 3 things before, but that I'm checking off that box every morning, first thing. So that I feel okay about, maybe we did talk about, like you mentioned last time, like do what you need to do about death, about the people who are dying. Like there's no rule for that, that says that you have to do this or that, but, I have to do what makes me feel right. So if I can't be there, I can call or, I can't drop everything all the time, So, and I was able to make room for seeing my sister, and I feel good about that. But it did set me back. But I know that was the right thing for me to do that.
And that's so different. That is so completely different than when we respond to grief, death, illness by, what I call the grief police, right? The people in our cultures or in our lives that say, here's what a good person does. Here's the way
Mm-hmm.
you're supposed to respond to this. Here's the way
Yeah.
that this grief or this situation is supposed to look like.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah, that's interesting.
absolutely
Yeah.
sets us back in real ways. Right.
Right. Right. It's true. When my husband died, so many people told me I needed to see a counselor or my kids needed to see a counselor. And the counselor for my kid actually was like, she's handling it in healthy ways. It's not, and I at the time what I did was I just didn't stop moving. I knew that if I stopped, I would get run over. I just never stopped moving. I must have had a lot of adrenaline or something, but that's what I needed to do. And it didn't make sense to other people. Why aren't you angry? Why aren't you sad? Why aren't you this or that? Well, at the time, I didn't have time I couldn't process it. It was just where I was. That's what I needed to do in order to get through what I had to manage at that time, which was, not an easy situation at the time with my kids. So anyway, yeah, that's a good thing to recognize. There are no rules around those things, and people project often what should or shouldn't happen. It really does come down to what you feel okay with. And I've been sharing more and more with my dad what I'm doing, and he's proud of me, and that's a whole different thing. Like to know that he knows that I'm out in the field. My dream, I was joking with him the other day. I always wanted to be Jane Goodall, and he said, you can't make money doing that. And he's like, well, I thought you wanted to be Jane Goodall. I didn't know that, you can't be her. I didn't know that, you could do other things, or I don't know. So it just, I'm finding ways to connect with him and still, and be distant. It's not always easy, but, because I want to be there, but I have to keep moving in one direction. That's going to make me feel better too than just dropping everything all the time. Because as I learned from the past couple of years, you can't just keep dropping things, especially this time in your life. Like, people are going to be dying all the time now. I'm in my 50s, actually. I'm not in my 40s. I'm in my 50s. And people, as you get older, people die. It happens. We all have to face that. So, I don't know.
So that kind of leads me into something I'd like to tap in with you on, Liz. How are you caring for yourself as far as allowing yourself to feel the emotion attached to these things? Because I know it's a habit for you to say, okay, I'm going to keep moving. And sometimes that's what you need to do, right? I'm fine.
I'm fine. Yes, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. I've got that good Presbyterian upbringing. Shut it down and everything's good. I'll hitchhike home from the car accident. Yeah. So, that's a really good point. And because, my best friend husky dog died in the last month, and I thought that was going to be really devastating, and in a lot of ways it is. But you mentioned to me to take time and to write about that story, or to have that story, that's part of processing the grief. And I do feel that I'm pushing off. I wish I had a retreat I could go to where I could just write about a lot of things, and that's one of them. I really haven't taken the time, and I wanted to write to my son's tutor also about our experiences. And I'm just kind of putting that off until after the Pollinator Festival, and I'm just praying that it's not going to be too late with him, and that would really feel bad. So maybe I need to find a way to do something that will make me feel okay in the meantime, because I don't want to miss that. That would really, really not feel good.
So that's an important thing that you just brought up, right? It's a realization of, I need to honor this mission as part of my own coming back into my life, of showing up at this pollinator festival. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to let it go just because these other things in my lives are exploding. But if he passed before you had a chance to connect with him, it would feel bad. So what can you do? What can you do that feels doable and will cover that, and will give you the opportunity to make sure that you are checked in there? It doesn't have to be the end all, right?
Right. It's hard to get in the place of being able to, be like, write the right letter or something when you have all these burners on at the same time. It's really hard to find that calm to be able to.
I'm going to stop you for a second, Liz, because the language that you just used told us a lot. It's hard to find the place to write the right letter. There is no right letter, baby. There isn't. You love this man.
Yeah.
You respect this man. you feel compelled to need to let him know that in some way before he passes. There is no right or wrong or one way to do that.
Yeah. Right. I have to calm down enough to be in the right space. And right now I'm in do mode because I have so much to do to make sure that, I get everything going. But it's not, the Pollinator Festival is one thing I've realized recently too, is that I get frustrated with myself because it feels like everything's so slow. Like I've been out of a job now for, I don't even know how many years, 2 years, I feel so slow. I haven't, but really to, like, it's okay. Like there's, in order to learn what I need to learn from this lab, the B lab here, it takes time. And it just, I can't just like read the stuff and have it absorb. It takes time. And so, and there'll be another Pollinator Fest next year, and I'll be, that's what I'm really looking at, is how to do it for next year. And it's not the end all be all thing. It doesn't have to take up everything for me right now.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just like you didn't need a logo in order to make this thing a success,
Yeah,
right? You don't
right,
have
I
to
know.
make all the jewelry. I know that that's one of the things that you want. It might be something.
Yeah, I want to make money from it too, so I can get started. But it's not, this year doesn't have to be the year that it's the big thing, Next year, it can be, I've never even been to this festival before, so I don't even know what's entailed. So jumping in and being this giant thing there doesn't necessarily make sense. I can just observe, and see what it's like for next year. It doesn't all have to happen right now. And maybe some of the things that are, that are really important for
And
right
you can
now.
connect there. Look at the things that you've done where you've just showed up at places, right? Having to do this and made connections that have moved all of this mission forward. Just
Right.
being there and connecting with people is a huge triumph right now.
Yeah, that reminds me. One of the things I'm trying to do is since I have to use that Pay Square thing for the festival, I need to set up a GoFundMe page to get going. That's like a number one priority too. So that would be more important than making all the jewelry and stuff, is just making sure that I have a way to process the payments and stuff like that. Like, it's not going to do any good if I don't have that ready to go.
Okay.
Oh,
So it sounds like we have a couple of layers here, right? We have the triage layer, and then there's the priority layer. Okay.
Yeah.
And the big umbrella that you are living under while you are triaging and prioritizing these next few weeks, the big umbrella that you're living under is acceptance, self-love, and non-judgment. There is no right or wrong way to do this, Liz. It is a lot. It is a lot. And anything that you do here that pushes the pebble forward in your life when this much is going on is an absolute triumph.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Okay. Can you feel that?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. It pretty much sums it up, because I feel like it's so slow. It's like but at the same time, some of the stuff, I can feel that there are breakthroughs that are happening that are really monumental. Like when I was driving on the refuge yesterday, and like I said, I felt like I was connecting with I just felt empowered about a lot of things, and I was able to see clearly some of the things that I do need to do next. And it's those moments that you kind of have to strike and move forward. So yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I have
can you
news for
repeat?
you, sister.
Acceptance, self-love. What was the third one? Acceptance, self-love, and what was the third one? I was writing and I missed it.
What did I say? Acceptance, self-love, and non-judgment.
Oh, okay.
Right? We're not. You're not judging yourself. You're not judging how this has to go or what this has to be.
Mm-hmm.
Pushing the pebble forward is the triumph. And Liz, I got to tell you,
Mm-hmm.
sister, we've only known each other a couple of months.
Is that right?
What you have done to move from absolutely terrified, overwhelmed, and stuck
Yeah.
to what you're doing now is fast. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And more has been thrown at you since then. It's not like this roller coaster stopped.
Oh yeah, no, it doesn't stop ever. That's why you realize, like, okay, that's, you got to just, why yeah, I have to just keep going. Sometimes the hard part's just getting wound up in the morning to
Yeah.
to go. And that was, I guess when I met you, that was even harder, much harder.
And now you're out with the bees, hiking 8 hours a day in what was 90-degree heat just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
unimaginable. Give yourself credit
Yeah.
for what you're doing. Give yourself credit for finding the personal power to push forward, even with all of this hitting you.
One of the things you said recently that really helped me also was redefining I don't feel like my story is that I'm a widow anymore. Like when I first met you, you were like, this is something about that. Like you're going to redefine. And maybe that's why I hesitated when you asked me, like, give your backstory. And I was like, I don't really have the same backstory anymore because I'm in a different place.
Yeah,
Like
you are.
my story now is more about the job that I lost and how devastating that was. All of these other things that happened to me, the thing that was the most devastating was the fact that I saw how messed up the government is related to the environment, and I cannot live another day and not tell people that the government's not going to fix it. We have to. And we have to get together to do it. And that, like, knowing that I saw that and knowing that I feel like responsible for it, I don't know, that's really where I am now. That's the sadness that I carry. The other stuff is I'm angry with death. I hate death. But at the same time, if I didn't have those struggles that I faced, I would never have realized how precious my time is and that I have to do something. That I could go tomorrow. That's what the car accident taught me. Like that's my life here is not a given, and I don't want to go to my grave knowing the stuff that I know and not doing something about it. So it just kind of fuels me on a little bit more. And I never felt like I was a victim when I was a widow. That wasn't like it always. I hated telling my story for that. It's like, well, I had to explain, like, this is what, that's who I am. But that's not really, that's just a small part of it. And anyway, thank you for helping me to see that my part of moving forward is looking at what my story is now. And my story now really has more to do with that piece of reinventing what my next steps are. And it's not about being, it's not about all the loss.
I'm glad to
But
hear you
that's just
say
what
that.
fuels me. It's part of what fuels me, I guess.
So I want to just point something out. In that same way that you redefined from the cancer survivor, I am the widow, to this next stage that feels so much more powerful. When you first brought it up, you said, now my definition is about the job that I lost. No, it's not. No, it's not, baby. Your definition is about the realization that I have a purpose on this earth, and I am completely passionate about it. It gives me my life, and I'm constantly, no matter what, pushing that pebble forward.
All right. that was the turning point, I guess, was, it was the best thing that could have happened to me, honestly. Being a part of the machine and watching things was very, very, very painful.
Yeah.
And so, at least I'm empowered now to make some kind of difference. Yeah.
So
Thank you for clarifying my, yeah.
we don't hear what we say sometimes, right? We don't
No.
really hear
Yeah.
where it's coming from. It's
Yeah.
really powerful to have some of that reflected back for all of us.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I'm going to give you a little bit of homework. Would that be okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
Okay. So, as I said, we've got both triage and we've got priorities, and that's going to stay under that umbrella, right? No judging yourself.
Okay.
Okay. No judging yourself, no
Okay.
expectations of others. So triage each day, and maybe a couple of times each day when things are coming at you, I want you to look at the what's important now, meaning what's urgent. So if there's a time component to it, I can't remember what you said the tutor's name was, might pass.
Daryl. Yeah. Yeah.
I might miss my chance to see Daryl. If missing your chance to see him feels like that would bring regret, that goes to the top of triage.
Mm-hmm.
And the important piece here, you have to remember that umbrella, okay? Because when it's at the top of triage, it doesn't mean, okay, now I need to find time to get Zen and journal and write this brilliant letter that shows for him every single thing that I think. That may not be, it may flow right out of you, Liz. That may not be possible. But
Mm-hmm.
touching in and letting and connecting with that man is 100% possible. Do you hear the difference?
Mm. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I do. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be how I thought it was going to look. It could look a different way. I don't know what that's going to be.
It probably will look a different way. And so as you
Yeah.
triage, being open to the possibility that it does not have to look the way that you
Mm-hmm.
expected it to look doesn't mean that you
Right.
can't
That's
tick the
good.
box when something feels like it's urgent and needs to be on the triage list.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then from there, you prioritize where you have time, right? Now you're triaged. Okay. What are the priorities for the pollinator festival? Right.
Yeah.
And you're going to keep those down to the really basic ones.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Remove all the story from it. Everything
Mm.
else is bonus, right?
Okay.
So often we
Right.
overwhelm ourselves, and when too much gets thrown at us, we shut down and then nothing happens, which
No,
is
or I
fine.
just make the list longer. That's what I do, and then I just end up grabbing half of it, and then that ends up being okay. But I could just make the list be half to begin with, so I don't have to be short at the end.
Make the list simple, and you can always grow it
Mm-hmm.
if you have time, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay.
You want to
That's
show
good.
up at that pollinator fest, and you want to show
Yep.
up feeling good so that you can connect and you can learn and you can be better for the next one, be bigger and
Yep.
badder for the next one, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want and
Mm-hmm.
need to be able to sell a little something. That's the purpose of this,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
right? So make sure that you've got the little square, the pieces in order for that. Unless that's not priority, if handing out seeds is, then don't worry about selling stuff.
Say that again. You
Don't
cut
worry
out.
about selling stuff if it's really not the priority this time, right? If
Oh yeah.
handing
Okay.
out seeds really is the priority, then your
Right.
number one is I'm showing up. I'm going
Yeah.
to be fully present while I'm there, and I'm going to hand out seeds. Everything else is
Yeah.
gravy.
Yeah. The seeds part, I did. That's a good point. That is a really, there's specialized bees that are the rare ones, and the seeds for those specialized bees is what I want to get a hold of. And that is a really big priority. And I did do some poking around today to find that. And that is I do want to make sure that happens.
Okay. So the homework is triage what's urgent and prioritize what's actually important, all under the umbrella of no judgment, completely open to it looking bigger or smaller, more likely, than you thought it had to.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, smaller.
All right.
Yeah,
And,
smaller is always that's my challenge.
Yeah.
Less
For all of us.
simple.
For
Yeah,
all of
keep
us.
it simple. All right.
Simple and keep pushing the pebble forward on all of these things. It is
All right.
real growth, Liz.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
And as promised, I'm going to give you, Liz, and everybody who's listening out there a really simple tool that helps build mental muscle that is kind of needed to do this sort of work. It is hard for us to focus when we are in either internal chaos, that's emotional chaos, or external chaos. All kinds of stuff is flying at us from the outside world. Really hard for us to focus, really hard for us to triage and prioritize. But there is a way to build our mental muscle so that we can get better and better at it. Okay, so this is a little mindfulness exercise that I use with absolutely all of my clients. I use it myself every single day. And full disclosure, I hated it when I learned it. I thought it was stupid. And I thought it wasn't going to do anything. I thought it wasn't going to do anything for me. I learned it from a friend of mine named Millie Greneau, and she actually learned this tool directly from Thich Nhat Hanh, which makes it really kind of cool. And I didn't buy in at first. And I will tell you that in doing this regularly, I have not only more focus than I've ever had in my life, but I am capable of maintaining a really Zen state when things get chaotic. Okay. So this little technique is called One Stone, and it's a mindfulness technique that's really simple to do. And I'm going to ask that everybody who tries it, do it, get this, 10 times a day. All right. But it only takes a couple of seconds. All right. It only takes a couple of seconds, and you can attach it to something you already do 10 times a day, whether it's have a bottle of water or even go to the bathroom, right? Anything do around 10 times a day, go ahead and attach it to it so that you don't forget to do this. All right. It's simple. It has two parts. One is breathing. We rarely stop to breathe. Okay. And in that breathing, what we do is we activate our parasympathetic nervous system, and that turns off that chemical cocktail that stops us from focusing. Okay. It actually gives you access to your prefrontal cortex. Just breathing changes your physiology enough so that you have access to the part of your brain that's responsible for focus. Okay. And the breathing actually makes you feel good too, right? Lowers your heart rate, gives you a pause in the day, so it feels good. The breathing component, I want you to take about 10 breaths. So the number in all of this is 10. About 10 times a day, about 10 breaths. But I don't want you to count. It doesn't matter whether you only do 3 or you do 30, right? Just allow for your brain to do it for the amount of time that feels like 10 breaths, okay? And while you're taking those breaths, really deep cleansing breaths, I want you to focus on something in your hand. Okay, it can be anything. I use a stone because I pick them up on beaches everywhere, and it's the way that I was taught to do it. You can use a piece of lint from your pocket. You can use a piece of jewelry that you have. It doesn't matter. And in the future, you won't even need to have something in your hand. But to start out, it's really helpful to have something in your hand. So while you're taking these deep breaths, I want you to focus on the thing in your hand. So if I were doing this out loud, what my mind would be saying is, this is a white stone. I picked it up on the beach at Watch Hill, And I remember that day. It's a round stone. I like it because it looks like a button. I'm just allowing my mind, eyes open, to process this thing, to focus on this thing in my hand while I'm breathing. But what's going to happen? I guarantee you, other thoughts will intrude. Has it been 10 breaths yet? Is anybody actually listening to me? Right? My foot hurts. Thoughts intrude. And each time a thought distracts you, pulls you away from the stone in your hand, you just notice it and make the very next thought be about that stone. The more times that happens, believe it or not, people feel like I'm so distracted. I was constantly going back and forth between I'm distracted, it's a white stone. I'm distracted, it's a white stone. That's actually really useful because every single time you notice a distraction and choose your very next thought, you're creating a neural pathway for focus. And the more times you do that, especially from a state of calm, like you're in while you're taking these breaths, the stronger that neural pathway becomes. So that with practice, when you really are in chaos, you will be able to put your attention on what you choose. Make sense?
Yeah, interesting.
It's
cool.
really
I like that
cool.
it's a stone too. I love stones, and I have plenty to choose from.
Me too.
I might get distracted on just thinking about the stone too much, but okay.
Yeah, so that's good. So I want to add that to your homework, Liz, and have everybody out there listening try one stone again. Try one stone as well, and it's simple, but not always easy. It takes practice, so stick with it for a while.
10 times a day, okay.
10 times a day, as many as you can.
I was going to say, we don't want to count 10 times a day, but just about 10 times a day, just like we don't count this. Okay. All right. Sounds good. I can do that.
For this sort of work to work. Yeah, it is. It's simple, but not easy.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So Liz, I really want to thank you for being brave and playing all in with me here today. And I want to thank
you. My pleasure.
Yeah. I want to thank everybody out there for listening. Liz is actually going to be back here for episode 3 of the Reinvention After 40 series, so we can see how she's doing and give her some more strategies to keep her momentum going. On the following episode of A Glimpse Inside series on Reinvention After 40, I'm interviewing the absolute queen of reinvention, former editor-in-chief of More Magazine and founder of Covey Club, Leslie Jane Seymour. I hope you'll be there too. And now, listeners, it's your turn. We all have a story, something getting in the way of living our lives with joy and abandon. If you're grappling with some stuck spots in any area of your life, or if you feel that there's more for you, but you can't quite put your finger on what it is or how to get there, I really want to hear from you. You can reach out and share your story with me at aglimpseinside.superpowerexperts.com. Again, that's aglimpseinside.superpowerexperts.com. I hope to hear from you. So tune in next time for episode 3 of Reinvention After 40, where we'll pick up with Liz as she reboots her life. And until then, big love.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the superpower quiz today.